7:08 our time, 7:08 in the morning. One of the saddest mornings of my life. I'll never forget this morning. People always ask us, what'd you do the day you found out that John Lennon was shot to death? So like, where were you when you found out John Kennedy had died? Where were you when Bobby Kennedy had died? Where were you when John Lennon, when you got the word? Beatle John Lennon is dead. Lennon shot late last night as he and his wife Yoko Ono entered the New York City apartment building where they lived. Lennon pronounced dead at a nearby hospital shortly thereafter, and police have charged scum of the earth, Mark Chapman of Hawaii, with murder. It's not known what the motive for the attack was. Former Beatle Paul McCartney is in seclusion at his farmhouse in southern England. His company has described Lennon's former writing partner as being in deep, deep shock over the death. Former Beatle Ringo Starr broke off a vacation. And George Harrison described today as deeply upset, as we all are. How does one handle the death of someone as great as John Lennon? You know, everything this radio station is about, every song we play has been influenced by the Beatles. Cheap Trick. Come on, that's the Beatles again. And you go back and you play the Stones, and you play, I don't know, anybody. I could pick out everybody. Everybody's been influenced by the Beatles. All of the greats. In the studio here with me is pictures of John Lennon. I've got all kinds of books about John Lennon, and I'm reading through them, and it's giving me the chills. It's giving me the creeps. Thank you for being with me this morning. Thanks for sharing in my grief. We're sort of sharing together experiences about the Beatles the way we feel. It's the only thing that's appropriate to do on a morning like this, isn't it? 7:10 is our time. For those of you driving in this morning, a stalled car is blocking the right-hand lane on southbound Southfield, just south of Michigan Avenue. Although traffic reports sound rather mundane on a day like this, on a day that we eulogize John Lennon, it's still important for people driving in. The weather, it's a gray rock and roll day, cloudy, snow likely, mixed with rain, sleet. That kind of day, highs around 35 degrees. I keep thinking about Yoko Ono and what she must be going through, and Paul McCartney, what he's feeling after all of the resentment and the pettiness and the in-house fighting and the breakup of the Beatles. What is Paul McCartney going through on a day like today? Oh, I would love to just have 5 minutes with Paul McCartney right now and talk with him. Let's talk together. Let's talk about what's happened here. This is probably a moment in history we'll be talking about for the rest of our lives. Hi, W4.
Hi. I grew up in upstate New York, and my first memories are of just the Beatles and on hot sunny days hanging out with my brothers. And they were as essential in my formative years as milk and learning how to cross the street.
That's right. That's right. They developed our hairstyle. They developed our clothing style. John Lennon was responsible for all the guys walking around with beards now, you know, and the long hair and everything else. He's influenced me in every. You want to know something? Here's a fact for you. Tell me how you react to this. To celebrate the Beatles' first American tour in 1964, Baskin & Robbins, which is the ice cream place, created a new flavor of ice cream called Beatle Nut.
Great.
I mean, you know, it's that kind of reaction. Even our ice cream, for God's sakes, the Beatles influenced.
They're European, but they were an American institution. And I think the thing that's so shocking is, yes, it's John Lennon, but he was such a pure case of individualism. And I think that's what we mourn for. What we mourn for most is because he stood for what he believed in, and
he sure
without
did.
any qualms at all.
He could do anything. You know, it's funny. I often on the show make fun of Yoko and criticize her, but John Lennon didn't care. He doesn't care. He was into Yoko. That was his woman, and that was his lifestyle. If John Lennon wanted to take a 5-year hiatus from recording music and raise his son Sean, all he wanted to do for 5 years he decided that's what he wants to do.
Yeah.
And he did it. He doesn't care what the world thinks. An amazing individual. And just celebrating his music here this morning, I'm getting the goosebumps and the creeps, and I'm crying, and I got tears in my eyes, and I'm going through Kleenex here like crazy. And I think also just the fact that a man can cry, break down and cry a little bit, has a lot to do with the Beatles. They taught us emotionalism. They taught men, as a man growing up, they taught us a lot of emotions that I don't think we ever experienced before.
I know. And
it's
gone.
I know. Thank you for your call.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hi, W4.
Good morning, Howard.
Good morning.
Depressing, isn't it?
This is the hardest show I ever had to do. I came in this morning at 6 o'clock. I don't know if you were with us at 6.
Yeah, I was.
And I was like saying, oh, how do I handle this monumental news? What do I do? And I just said, well, I'll leave it to my audience to eulogize, and I'll let you take over.
I couldn't believe it. You know, I was sleeping last night.
Right.
I must have dozed off about 11 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
And I woke up about 1:30 and went to bed. And I had this strange dream. I thought, gee whiz, one of the Beatles got bumped off. You know, I just...
Did you really dream? Oh, I see. You heard it on television, sort of subliminally.
I must have. You know, the news was on, but, you know, it must have popped on about midnight or something, and I wasn't awake or anything. But then this morning I thought, wow, man, it happened. It really did happen.
I hate to read things into it, but I was having trouble sleeping last night. This is really funny. I started to doze off, and I had been kind of freaked out. I had been thinking, I think a lot about spiritual things and ghosts. I'm very caught up in that kind of thing. I don't know if I believe in ghosts, but every once in a while I get this eerie feeling whenever I can't sleep. And it was one of those nights. And then when my wife comes running in and says, Howard, I have to wake you up. You have to know this John Lennon's been shot. I freaked. And I've been up since midnight last night. I just can't handle this. I have never been so moved or shocked in my whole life.
Yeah, it's just incredible, you know, that somebody could
influence us like this.
Yeah.
And you know me, I don't get, you know, I see David Lee Roth and I see Steve Perry and I see these guys. They come by the station. You know, I mean, these guys are just rock and roll stars. To me, John Lennon is like he changed my whole life.
Yeah, kind of like an institution.
I'd still be putting butcher's wax in my hair with crew cuts if it wasn't for John Lennon.
So would everybody else.
Thanks for your call.
Hey, I just want to say one thing, Howard.
Sure.
Kevin's got to have the greatest rock and roll band.
Yeah.
With John Lennon up there.
That's right. Thank you.
Goodbye.
W4, hi.
How you doing, Howard?
Well, not so good this morning. This is a rough show today.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I don't want you to get on no guilt trip or nothing, Howard, but I think that you owe the Detroit rock and roll audience an apology for the way you've been talking about Yoko last month.
No, I don't agree with you. The fact that Yoko Ono has been criticized and criticized. Yoko Ono's been married to John Lennon. It has nothing to do. There's no apologies necessary. People have made fun of Yoko Ono. I've made fun of Paul McCartney's last couple of albums. I've made fun of some of John Lennon's solo albums. The people make fun of me. There's no problem with that. The problem here is that what we're talking about is greater than Yoko Ono or the Beatles. We're talking about something, a phase of our lives that is over.
Well, I've heard you talk about how she was bad for me. Like you said,
I never said Yoko was bad for him. I said I did not like the woman's music.
No, on his album, man.
I do not like Yoko's music. I still don't like Yoko's music. It has nothing to do with the fact that John Lennon is dead, or that I love John Lennon more than any rock and roll star. Listen, I don't carry on about rock and roll stars.
I believe that, but just out of respect for him, you know, because she was something he loved, you know, and who are we to say who was right for him and who wasn't?
Absolutely, I agree with you. I never told John Lennon not to marry Yoko. I just wouldn't buy an album of hers. And that's what I meant by it, and I still stand by that. There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, that's true, too, but, you know...
John Lennon, to me, was one of my biggest heroes because, as a caller 2 callers ago said, he was an individualist. He was a real star. He was more than just a rock and roll star. The man was a Renaissance man. He was great in film. He was great in music.
He was another Jim Morrison. You know, his lyrics were just something that you could just listen to. You could appreciate him without the music behind it of the Beatles.
I feel I owe nobody an apology. Thank you. W4, hi.
Good morning. Oh boy, I was really hoping it was a real a stunt, you know?
Yeah, right, almost like the Beatles had planned this to sell a couple of more albums.
Right, you know, like a couple of winters ago they had Paul is Dead, and I was hoping they would do John is Dead too, but evidently I found out different. But I believe that John Lennon's death is purely political, because if he was running for president, I think he would have got more votes than Reagan.
Yeah, well, listen, I'll tell you something. Unfortunately,
20 years from now.
The thing that what happened here with John Lennon is that this is the way I think the motive goes. Some 25-year-old schmendrick from Hawaii comes over to New York and just decides that either he, like Lee Harvey Oswald, he wants to be famous, or he resents John Lennon because he's so famous and he's a nobody that he goes up and shoots the guy 5 times. And I am just deeply shocked, and I
think everybody is. I'm sure they are, of course.
And I can't say what the heck this guy's motives are, but I often am afraid of this. Of these assassins. I thought that it would hit the rock and roll world. I can't remember another rock star that's been assassinated.
Remember David Bowie said, "I'm not going on stage because I'm afraid to be shot."
Yeah, I've often been afraid of this, and now look what's happened. This has happened to probably the king of rock and roll, John Lennon.
You know that guy was so. I mean, he was so together. The reason why everybody loved the Beatles is because they saved generations from being crippled by a modern and rapidly growing society.
Mm-hmm.
They taught us that a grueling lesson that things don't last forever when they broke up. And here he took time out from his busy life to go help John Sinclair. Remember that Freedom Rally in Ann Arbor?
I remember all the Give Peace a Chance and John and Yoko in their bedrooms. I remember all of that, and I remember thinking at the time, gee, what are these crazy people doing? What are these nuts doing? And you know, it all makes sense now. It was a good thing to do. Here was a guy who said, I'm not going to sit back. I'm not going to just sort of become a recluse. At that point, he felt he should sit in his bedroom and do a crazy stunt like that and bring peace or give peace a chance. It made perfect sense in every sense of the word. Thank you.
I hope he rests in peace now.
I agree.
We'll keep it alive. If everybody can put a black piece of cloth on their antenna and drive it around, that'd be great.
That might be a nice tribute. Thank you for the call. We're W4, 718 is our time. 106 FM, W4, The Beatles, and Let It Be. John Lennon dead at the age of 40. Oh, 7:21 our time. A very sad moment in rock and roll. And what I want to use the show for this morning is to let you grieve with us here at W4. Debbie Beller was in here at... What time did you get in, Deb?
I got here about 3 or 3:30 this morning.
3:30 in the morning.
I've been up all night.
Yeah, like me, we couldn't sleep last night. It was very difficult. And when she heard the news, you said you thought of calling me and telling me. It's funny, but my wife came running into the room and said, you've got to know this. I mean, this is not the kind of thing you sleep through.
Yeah, right. There was just after my friend from the television station called me, there was no way I could sleep. And then about 10 minutes later, my friend from New York called me, and she was the same way, saying, I can't believe this, I can't believe it. It was just, I still can't believe it.
I know. I'm sitting here sort of torturing myself, too, which is... Maybe it's not the proper thing to do. I'm looking at, we have a book here with baby pictures of John Lennon and all the different phases of John Lennon. They got one here with John Lennon in an army hat and John Lennon with his electric guitar.
How I Won the War.
How I Won the War. That's right, his small part he took in that film. So many different pictures of John Lennon here go through my mind, and with every picture, a different phase of my life comes up. John Lennon with the beard and long hair. He influenced me that way to go with the beard and the long hair and to sort of get introspective. When John Lennon was introspective with his music, I became introspective. And when John Lennon was the happy-go-lucky Beatle with the Beatle boots and just starting to grow his hair long, I started to do those things. John Lennon, what a great rock and roll star. Boy, we'll miss him. I tell you what we'll do. What do we have? We have Melody Maker. They're ready to go on the air with us. Why don't we do that? Melody Maker is a magazine in England. And then we're going to get an update from the source. Are we ready with that one too, Deb?
Yeah, we're ready with that.
Yeah, we can find out the latest details of just what's going on. I thought this might be kind of interesting for you. Let's get Melody Maker magazine on the phone.
I think it's, around 12:30 or 1:30.
12:30 or 1:30 over in England. So we'll go on the phone here to Melody Maker magazine. We'll be talking with Ray Coleman. We set up this interview just a few minutes ago. We've been trying to get through to them. And we'll see the reaction over in England. Also, I want you to call in with your phone calls. Let's keep doing that this morning.
Coleman's office.
Hi, is this Melody Maker magazine? I'm looking for Ray Coleman. I'm live on the air. This is Howard Stern from W4 Radio. He said he would speak with us now.
Well, a moment, please. I'll hand you over to him.
On the phone.
Hello, this is Ray Coleman in London, Melody Maker.
Ray, hi. This is Howard Stern from W4 Radio in Detroit. Thanks for joining us. Obviously, we're all in shock this morning about the death of John Lennon. It's something we don't know how to handle, and I thought it might be appropriate to give you a call because Melody Maker magazine has been sort of like I compare it to Rolling Stone. Is that safe to do that?
Yes, I think that's a fair description, yeah.
Okay, and it's a British publication, and somehow I felt it was proper to give you guys a call. I'm not sure exactly why. What was your first reaction when you heard the news?
Well, stunned disbelief, I think, was the first reaction. I think that people kept not believing it at first, and then I suddenly realized that it was a sort of parallel with the day that Kennedy died.
Yes, that's what I compare it to.
For all of us who grew up in the 60s, it's a very, very touching and terrible moment. I mean, I still can scarcely believe it as I'm writing thousands of words here about John, and he was a guy I'd interviewed and met several times, both here and in New York during the Beatle times, and since. And it's just impossible to comprehend that a man at the age of 40 who was just coming out of that retirement period and had an awful lot more music to give us should be shot dead so callously. I mean, it's simply unbelievable.
Ray, one of my biggest fears has always been, especially when I go to a concert, I'm always afraid that there's going to be some kind of assassin in the audience. For some reason, this has always been my biggest fear about rock and roll concerts and audiences. Sometimes there's like those few maniacs who get into a rock and roll concert and they start throwing firecrackers and ash cans and M80s at rock stars. And now is this what we can expect in the future? More attacks on rock stars? Is this what we...
No, but I mean, it's a risk that anyone in public life takes. If they want to lead a fairly normal outward life, as John Lennon always did. I mean, he was never one to protect himself with bulletproof vests or anything crazy like that. He believed in living life just like you and me and walking down the street as much as possible.
It's true.
Something I'd done with him many, many times. It's a risk he's going to have to take. There's always going to be a crackpot who's going to take a crack at someone who's famous for whatever reason.
It's true. I said to one of the disc jockeys here who comes on before me, I said, I wish he had tighter security, but John Lennon really was not one for big security and that kind of thing. Him and Yoko were walking down the street and fans were coming up to him, and this guy was just another fan with a record album in his hand, and then bam-o, 5 shots. I believe it was 5 shots. You say you interviewed John Lennon several times?
Many times. I was lucky to be around. I joined this paper, Melody Maker, in 1960, and as you know, 2 years later, their first record came out. That was Love Me Do.
Right.
And I was lucky to go around this country and several other countries, including America, with the Beatles. So my personal attachment to John particularly was unique.
What is the one outstanding moment or the one outstanding thing that John Lennon turned to you and said? I mean, what went through your mind? What picture did you envision when you heard that John Lennon was dead at the age of 40? What was that one moment, maybe out of all of those interviews, that stuck out in your mind?
I think the guy I remember best is the one sitting at his home, not very far from my own, actually, down in Surrey, where he used to write songs, and he was a bit of a hellraiser when he went on the road, but John actually loved writing songs too. As you know, he was a great lyricist and author. He'd written 2 books of poems, incidentally.
I wasn't aware of that.
It was the guy who just sat in his den, a music room at Weybridge, writing songs like Nowhere Man, that I shall cherish in my memory.
Ray, thanks for joining us this morning, sharing a little piece of your life with us. I'm trying to sort of make my way through the show. My audience is calling in stunned. We're just all so deeply upset, and the only way that we can get this somehow out of our system is to talk about it. And thanks for joining with us, Ray. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That's Ray Coleman from Melody Maker magazine. I'd say the British version of Rolling Stone magazine. I'll try to keep you abreast of what's going on, reaction around the rock and roll community. We'll get in touch with other people, other magazines, and most of all, let's keep in touch with each other. Give me a call, 259 Rock and Roll. Share those moments, those great rock and roll moments with me, okay? Debbie Beller.
All right, about 27 minutes past 7 o'clock this morning. It is 35 degrees in Detroit, and that's going to be our high temperature today. We're expecting some snow, maybe an inch or so a bit later on. Here's more information for you.
All he was saying is give peace a chance, but John Lennon died violently. I'm Dara Welles from The Source, and John Lennon is dead. Shot and killed last night outside his New York City apartment building. John and Yoko Ono were at the record plant recording studio working on a single they plan to release as a follow-up to their new album, Double Fantasy. They took a break, got into their limousine, and headed home for something to eat. Then tragedy struck. This woman was standing outside the Lennons' apartment house when the limo pulled up.
What happened? I saw John and Yoko get out of the limousine. They walked into the gate, and let me just look at it. And then I heard four or five shots. They were air-shattering. I heard Yoko, and I heard the woman screaming. It was Yoko. She was screaming, "Help me."
Lennon was rushed to a nearby hospital, but he was dead on arrival. Police have a suspect, 25-year-old Mark David Chapman of Honolulu. It's reported Chapman spent the better part of a week hanging around the Lennons' apartment building. He's to be arraigned for murder today. John Lennon fought hard to live in the United States. Back in the 70s, officials tried to keep him out of the country after a drug incident, but Lennon finally won the right to stay. He explained why he chose to live in America.
This is the land of the free, right? And since the last 100 years, all the artists, major and otherwise, have been attracted to this country. And although initially it was I came as a Beatle, it was Yoko's influence that got me to look at it as a place to be in rather than just scoot in and run back with the loot.
Because of his music, John Lennon was respected around the world. This morning, there are weeping fans standing outside the New York City apartment building where John Lennon lived and died. And that's news. I'm Dara Welles from The Source.
People feel guilty about that. Obviously, we are not making fun of the woman herself. We were just making fun of the music, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No.
Also on our phone lines later on the 9 o'clock hour from Rolling Stone magazine, Dave Marsh. I'm really looking forward to talking to him.
He's a great guy.
We've got Bill Rowe lined up from Harmony House, who will be with us live and talk about yesterday's scene. We've got Les from Record Outlet, who's going to be with us. So there's a lot of people, and Debbie Beller's here just to give us a rundown on some of the things that are happening.
All right, we're just going to take a real quick look at what's happening in the news. Mostly cloudy today, some snow flurries likely with a high up around 30 degrees, and it is. We might get an inch or so of accumulation, maybe some rain or sleet later on in the day. High around 35. 15 our expected low tonight with some snow flurries, and cloudy and continued cold tomorrow. Tomorrow's high even colder than today, 28. 35 right now, Howard.
Ray Coleman, who was just on the phone with us, Debbie, made an interesting point. He says, the John Lennon I'll always remember is the John Lennon sitting in his home writing songs like Nowhere Man.
He's a